Hey everyone.
Oh, Peter.
Parker. Sorry I'm late. It's a jungle out there. I had to beat an old lady with a stick to get these.
Okay, so I recorded this video already. It was like 40 minutes long, and when I was gonna edit it, I realized that I messed up the microphone somehow. So here we go again. I'm gonna try to be more brief. This is not gonna be a review of every single movie that is here on screen, but I will just, quickly go over it and tell you why I put this, these movies in each tier that I decide. Okay, so Spider-Man 1. I have a lot of respect for this movie, not only because, in my opinion, it's a pretty good superhero movie, but also because it kind of helped the MCU eventually become what it became and what it is right now. And yeah, I know it's not the first superhero movie. It's not the first superhero movie that had a really good box office return either, but it definitely helped superhero movies not be, kind of the outsider anymore. It helped studios realize, oh, well, maybe we should invest more on superhero comic book movies because you get a lot of money. And yeah, it worked pretty well. I think I am going to put this movie in the A tier. And like I said, it definitely is not a great movie as a whole, but as a superhero movie, it's really, really good. And it gets to a point in which you have to realize, is this a good movie because of the movie itself or because of the impact that it had on the industry and in other movies? And I think you have to find a balance between those two. That's why I'm putting this movie in the A tier. If it was just based on a movie as just a movie, I would probably put it lower in the list. But definitely, it's a very important movie. It's got iconic scenes. It's got my definite Spider-Man. I know that a lot of people don't like Tobey Maguire, and yeah, I understand it. He acts kind of strange a lot of times. He kind of is a little awkward a lot of the times that he's on screen, and when he's the main character and when he has to be Spider-Man, he is awkward, and I get it, and I respect your opinion. But I watched this movie when I was 5 or 6 years old. I remember being obsessed with this movie. I remember my birthday party that year being Spider-Man themed, so it's got a really special place in my heart. But not just that, it's just a really good movie overall. There's so many scenes that you even if you didn't watch it when it first came out, it's got such a lot of scenes that are iconic and that you can remember and quote. It's got an amazing villain. It's got my favorite villain of all times, which is the Green Goblin. But I also don't think that that he's the best villain overall. I think that Thanos is better objectively, even though his logic is very flawed and whatnot. But overall, I think the Green Goblin is my favorite villain overall. But yeah, I have a lot of respect for this movie, and on a directing and cinematography side of the movie, I think it's really good because it had never been done on film, and I really appreciate how creative the shots can be. I really like how you see Spider-Man swinging in the city, and even though the CGI is not great, definitely because it came out in 2002, it still holds up pretty good. It's got good messages. I really like that they made Uncle Ben come up with the phrase that everyone knows about responsibility and all that, because I think that in the comics, I'm not an expert, but I think I read the first one, Amazing Fantasy, whatever, when Spider-Man was introduced, and I think that Uncle Ben didn't say that with great power comes great responsibility. I think he just said it in a thought bubble in the comic, like Peter said it to himself. So if I remember correctly, and that's the case, I think that it's a really good idea to get that really core and important message that shapes who Spider-Man is. I really think that it was a really good idea to make Uncle Ben say it on this movie. So yeah, there's many good things, there's many not so good things, there's quite a bit of cringe, but I love it. I think it's got great characters, it's a great Spider-Man movie, it's a great superhero movie, and it was really important. So that's why it's on A tier. Now, Spider-Man 2, this definitely is an S tier. Why is this an S tier movie for me, you may ask? Because it's just perfectly balanced. It's got the right amount of comedy. The cringe is definitely lower compared to the previous movie. Yeah, we still have Tobey Maguire as Spider-Man acting kind of strange a lot of times,
Pizza time.
but still I think that there's balance. And yeah, I think this movie is great. It doubled down on the great cinematography, not just in the action scenes, but it also has a lot of really cool just shots that are not like it's not like all of the scenes are like just wide shot and then close-ups of the characters talking and following the 180 rule. No, there's a lot of shots in many of the scenes that are complex, that are that involve a lot of movement, and the blocking of the scenes is perfect in my opinion. Lastly, before I go to the next movie, because I don't want this to be a very long video, it's got some iconic scenes as well. Really well made, like the train scene, that's really inspiring. And yes, it's a superhero movie, but it gives me chills every single time I watch it, and it makes me feel something, and that's really important. Also, the surgery scene when they try to get rid of the tentacles, it's really cool. Yeah, it's got the classic cheesiness that you can expect from the Sam Raimi movies, like in that, not in the whole scene, but definitely in that one shot where the nurse or doctor gets pulled away by one of the tentacles, and then she kind of scrapes the floor, and you see kind of like bits and pieces of the floor, with the nails and all that. But yeah, overall, like those scenes that I mentioned are really iconic. They're really well made, and I really like this movie. It's not preachy. It's not just fun for the sake of being fun. No, it's got the perfect balance, and I think that's why, in my opinion, Spider-Man 2 is the perfect superhero movie. Now, Spider-Man 3, I'm going to be brief. I enjoyed this movie quite a bit, and yeah, it's got a lot of problems, I'm not gonna lie. It's convoluted. The studio made Sam Raimi include Venom, and he kind of got sidelined. It got ruined as a character. I think it's a really lame character in this movie, not the character of Venom in the comics and all that. But yeah, I think that this movie would have been a lot better if it had not been so heavily meddled with by the studio. The cheesiness and cringiness definitely went back up. I think this is the silliest of all three movies. But yeah, overall, I like this movie. It's not a great movie, but you don't have to only like really good movies. And yeah, it kind of has strange scenes, like this one in which Aunt May says, "Oh, you were sad on the phone, so I decided I would come to visit you." So she goes out of her way to visit Peter and take the bus, take the whatever taxi, and then she just talks to him for like 1 minute. I'm not even joking, it's just like 1 minute, and then she leaves. And I'm like, well, if I'm visiting someone, if I'm traveling from one spot of a very busy city like New York, and I'm visiting someone, I'm gonna stay there for a couple hours. I'm not just gonna go through the trouble of going and taking the bus or the subway or paying a cab to get to my friend's, or in this case my nephew's house, just so that I talk to him for 2 minutes and then leave. No. And this is a problem that comes because you like, the script is so rushed, it's all over the place, and you just had to get some of these scenes done in whatever way you could squeeze them into the movie. But yeah, overall, I think even though it's cringy, it's still got a lot of positives. It's still got Tobey Maguire, which is my favorite Spider-Man. It's still got a good villain, which, well, one of the villains is pretty good in my opinion, and it's the Sandman. I also kind of like Harry Osborn as the villain, and I feel like if this movie had stayed with those two villains only, it would have been pretty good. Sorry, I'm not going more in depth with all of my sort of quick reviews, quick thoughts of these movies. But if you're interested in hearing more of what I have to say about all of these movies, please let me know in the comments. You can also tell me why you disagree with me. I don't care, go ahead. As long as there's some dialogue, I'm happy. But yeah, I'm gonna try to go quick, because like I said, the last time I tried to make this video, it was like 40 minutes long, and yeah, I don't want you to spend a lot of time with me. I know you're busy and all that. So let's go to the next movie. This is a tier C for me. Why? It's not a bad movie, but it definitely has more of that type of scenes that I talked to you about in the previous movie, like that makes no sense. For example, there's a scene at the beginning where Peter gets a punch on the face, and then he talks to his uncle and aunt, and then he goes to the basement with his uncle, and then he's like, oh, here, take a steak for your eye. I know that they punched you. And I'm like, where did you get that steak from? Like, it makes no sense at all. Because, like, you don't see him go to the fridge, get a steak. And also, why would he have a raw steak in the basement? I don't see any fridges there. You can't see any of that. It doesn't make much sense, in my opinion. And throughout the whole movie, there's a lot of just strange scenes like that don't make sense when you stop for a moment to think about, okay, why did this character act this way? It makes no sense. I also don't like the costume design. I don't like the character design. So that's why this is not one of my favorite Spider-Man movies. I think that it had good ideas, but overall it fails to convey what I expect from Spider-Man. And it also doesn't help that even though Andrew Garfield is a great actor, you've heard this before many times, but he's too cool to be Peter Parker. Like, to be honest, if I was in that school, I would be kind of intimidated by him, because like he looks like a cool guy. They try to sell you Peter Parker as an awkward teenager that has no friends, and to be honest, like he looks cool, he acts cool, he skateboards, he's handsome, he's got nice hair, so like I don't believe that nobody likes him. Finally, I just want to say that the reason why I'm not putting this movie any lower is because I like the villain. I think that the Lizard could have been even better. Bad. I think he's a good villain. I think his motivations they can be a little silly, but I kind of like the progression of him, and I kind of understand them, and I feel like if they hadn't cut down a couple of those scenes with the Lizard, like, it would have been a really good villain. But overall, it definitely is better than like half of the MCU villains, so that's why actually I'll just put it in a tier B. Yeah, that feels more right. So that leads us to Spider-Man 2. What do I have to say about this movie? Not much. It's bad.
Happy birthday, dear Max. Happy birthday to me.
Okay, so Homecoming is a tier B for me, because even though it has a big plus in my opinion, which is actors that actually kind of look like teenagers in high school, like, it kind of like, the problem with these movies is that they're a part of the MCU, so they set up a lot of things, they have a lot of cameos that are not necessary, and they don't serve any function whatsoever except for fans to be like, oh, there's Captain America. And above all of that, I really don't like that, because there's no Uncle Ben in these movies. The Uncle Ben character kind of goes to Tony Stark, and I don't like Tony Stark. I think he's a really bad character. I think that he progressed quite a bit in the first Iron Man movie, and then he regressed, and he stayed at the same level throughout all of his other appearances in the MCU. And like I said, this movie is very centered on him being kind of Peter's mentor, and it just, like, it takes away a lot of the focus from Peter, and it's a Spider-Man movie, it's his story, and I feel like it just, like, it's too centered on other characters from the MCU. And yeah, even though I really like it, and there's a lot of good things about this movie, that is why I'm putting it on tier B and not on a higher tier. It also has a lot of the MCU Disney quip, like, you know, witty one-liners, humor that I don't like at all, but it's still pretty good in my opinion, pretty decent, so that's why it's on tier B. Now, however, Far From Home, in my opinion, is definitely worse, but I like it a lot more. But I'm putting it on tier C because I hate Mysterio as a villain. I love Jake Gyllenhaal, but I just think that him as a villain is stupid, and I also hate this kind of cliche that shows up in a lot of the MCU movies, which is having a villain be the villain of the movie only because something that Iron Man did and hurt him and hurt his feelings and whatnot, which happens way more than I would like it to be. And like I said, this is a Spider-Man movie. I really understand that Tony Stark was very important for Peter. He was kind of a father figure even for him, and I understand that he's in pain, but also like it just like takes away from the main focus of the movie, which is Spider-Man. You know, even though Tony is dead by this point, he's just so involved in this movie. He caused the villain to be the villain. He has like this great power, like the Edith kind of thing that I really hated. And overall, I think that Mysterio is a lame character. I think that there's not a lot of depth to him. It's just like, oh, he made fun of my invention and he didn't respect me. I'm gonna kill people now. Like, what? Like, yeah, like it's just a bad villain. And the only reason why I'm not putting it lower on a tier D, for example, is because even though I have a lot of problems with this movie, I really like the setting of just friends going to have a holiday in Europe with with each other, and they have fun and whatnot. I like that a lot, and I really enjoy this movie when I don't think about it too much. So yeah, that's like this is more of an objective-ish, well, it's biased, but anyways, if I was more biased than I am right now, I would put this movie probably up here, to be honest. I just like watching it, and I've watched it many times. I watched it and pay attention to it. I've watched it like in the background when I'm doing other stuff, and yeah, I like it. Spider-Verse. This is probably the closest any superhero movie has come to an S tier, especially compared to Spider-Man 2. It definitely has the balance that I really appreciate from Spider-Man 2, and yeah, like it's got amazing, just beautiful animation. It's got really cool shots. It's got it's got its own personality. It doesn't follow the same MCU formula that a bunch of these other movies follow. Well, not necessarily Spider-Man movies, but like definitely the Tom Holland movies do follow that to a T. But yeah, I think that Into the Spider-Verse is really fun. I really like the music. Well, I don't love all of the music in this movie. I like a lot of the songs, but overall, I think it's got good music. I think it's got really good music. It's really well directed, even though it's just an animation. And I know that kind of sounds mean because there's a lot of work put into this movie. So I'm just gonna pretend I didn't say that. I know. But anyways, this movie is definitely goes above and beyond to be not just a good superhero movie, not just a good movie, but a really, really, really good Spider-Man movie, which is the main thing in this tier list that I'm looking for in these movies to rate them. So that's why it's on the S tier. Like I said, I'm not actually reviewing all of these movies, but if you're interested in hearing more of my thoughts on any of these movies, let me know in the comments. Maybe I'll make a dedicated video about some of these movies if you want, leading up to No Way Home, which I am extremely excited for, and I can't wait to watch, and I am just like, I need to watch it. But anyways, yeah, that's why it's on S tier. It's amazing. If you haven't watched it, I don't know why you haven't, because it's amazing. But yeah, that was all the movies that I was intending to add, but this to rate in this video. But for some reason, this tier template came with Venom, so I'm going to put it up here.
Like a bird in the wind.
So yeah, that's about it. Thank you for watching, and please comment down below why you don't agree with me, why you agree with me, and I'll see you next time.
Pizza time.